Well, I come from a very musical family and a family who are obsessed with music even to this day. My parents are both Irish and they emigrated to Manchester in the early 60s and with their family, so I grew up around a very large extended Irish family and they're just music obsessives, as I say. So from being a very little boy, there was a lot of house parties and a lot of rock and roll music, which even by then really was a little retro, but sounded great, you know. So the things like Eddie Cochran and there was a lot of that and Elvis Presley records, but also my parents were very young when I was a kid. They were teenagers when I was born, so they really liked the modern pop music of the day, and that would have been in the mid-60s. So it was things like the Hollies and the Four Tops, and that was it. That combination of those Irish house parties, which didn't involve Irish traditional music, it involved American rock and roll music, which had very loud guitars on, Everly Brothers, Eddie Cochran and like, which I'm very grateful of now. I look back on it, because there are records that were built on guitars. And the pop music of the day that the parents were playing on the radio, 60s pop groups, Amen Corner, all the Motown stuff.
Just great songwriting.
Yeah, great records. And then what happened with me was that I accidentally, or for some unknown reason, got obsessed and hooked on the guitar as a toy when I was about 5. My favourite toy was this little wooden guitar that I had that I used to carry around, and so every year as I got older I just got a bigger and bigger guitar, and then when I was old enough to start buying my own records at 9 or 10, I was learning to play the guitar at the same time. So my guitar playing developed as I started to study pop records, and that was in the early 70s. Mark Bolan and T-Rex were my first real love. He was my first hero. Played the guitar, he was little, made these amazing guitar records, and then that was it. Then he just lit the touch paper, and I treated my record player really. I treated a record player in my bedroom a little bit like an experiment, a chemistry or science experiment. I studied it. I used to study records, and then that went into my learning to play the guitar. I didn't have guitar lessons, or I didn't even really learn conventional guitar. I learned.
So you didn't read? You just played?
No, I didn't have any lessons. I just played along with records. Yeah, I used to get my little brother to put his finger on the turntable and to slow it down while I played it.
And so you just like completely winged it by ear. And in terms of, you know, obviously you've got a very distinct style. Did that just kind of evolve naturally over time, or did you just think, well, I'm going to create the Johnny Marr signature?
Yeah, my guitar style evolved like any other musician's style evolves, from trying to, in a way, you know, you try and emulate your heroes, or you try and shoot to play stuff and you get things wrong, and that accident, I guess, you know, can be called innovation, really. But often it is like, you know, working within your own limitations, and also a combination of hearing things that aren't even really there. You know, you imagine someone's playing something a certain way, and you approach it a certain way, and that's happened with me. You meet them. When I met Nile Rodgers and Bert Jansch, the folk guitar player, I was saying, "No, is this how you play your riff?" And I was playing it my way, and they were going, "That's not how you do it. That's not how I do it." But it helped me along. I just went down the wrong road. Really.
Create your own style. So do you think, like, not having formal training and having that experience listening to records in your room, that kind of, you know, if you'd gone down the formal route, do you think that would have maybe got in the way of you developing?
I think it would have made me more conventional, without a doubt. Because my approach to writing songs is all about almost like being a human jukebox in a way, really. Or even that is a bit of an archaic term now. A lot of people don't know what a jukebox is. But I sort of I put songs and structures of songs together, like mashing up a bunch of 45s coming out of a jukebox. That's sort of how I remember, really. You know, in modern parlance, it's like being a kind of a walking playlist, I guess.
Yeah.
As opposed to notation. I've got my own way of writing down arrangements, but I like it that way. I like that I've got a. It's worked. It's worked out all right.
Definitely worked, and also the kind of keeps the magic alive, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think mystery is underrated. Songwriters will often tell you that you drive yourself insane by trying to recreate some magic moment. You think, right, that's how I hit on the formula. I stay up for 3 nights, or I go through heartbreak, or I get into this drug, or and there's no formula. But once you accept that there's a mystery, and you're okay with that, that's a pretty nice thing. Alternatively, you have to be, the other side of the coin would be for me to be just so adept at composition, like a maestro, like someone like Gil Evans, a jazz arranger, or Ennio Morricone, or any number of absolutely really, Burt Bacharach, really gifted composers that all the tricks. I sometimes think that I might go there one day and just maybe learn systems, but you're in dodgy ground there, because you're saying goodbye to something that is inherently your own weird, funky way of doing things, and having that eccentricity is often more interesting than knowing
I
the
think the
conventions.
best records must have been created, a lot of them created with that kind of mysterious, the magic that you don't quite know where it comes from. But in terms of sort of staying up late for 3 days and stuff, I hear you're living quite clean these days.
Yeah, well, I sort of live, in a way I live clean, that's, as a service to being a musician. The easiest way of putting it is that if I thought that drinking and taking drugs would make me a better musician, I'd do that. My lifestyle is not as any kind of reaction to what's the word I'm looking for? It's not about abstinence or about being puritanical.
No.
I think it gives me more attitude. I think when you get to a certain age as well, it's not a very good look on a person, really.
No.
Being kind of messy. I will do, and I've always done whatever, from being 11 or 12. I do whatever it takes for me to get the tune. And so that's the way I live my life now. It's not
the music first.
Yeah, my family, they understand that. If it means moving to another country, or I was like that as a teenager. Left school at 15, a year before I was supposed to. That didn't go down very well with my parents and my school. But that was because I had an opportunity to go to a demo in Nick Lowe's house in London, and for Elvis Costello's manager, and then I got asked to join a band of adults when I was 14, and they were a bunch of gnarly reprobates, frankly. And it was scary going across town to the red light district and going into this basement 2-3 nights a week. But I put myself in that with a bunch of strangers, and I put myself in that situation because I wanted to learn how to play like the Stooges, which is how they sounded. And they had a reputation for being pretty good. And that mentality is still with me now, really. So when I joined Modest Mouse in 2005, I walked into a room 3,000 miles away from my home with a bunch of strangers, as an experiment, and it went so well. I ended up being in the band for 4 years, and my family ended up moving to Portland, and that became a big part of my life. But that's exactly the same behaviour as when I was 15, and some band I needed to check out was interested in me playing. So from the outside, reading about it in the music press or whatever, it seems like some big career move made by me and a record company, or it could just seem like a move, But
it was actually entirely just to do with music and what you're feeling.
Same as when I was 15, 16. I don't think I'll ever change.
And was there a kind of turning point where you just decided, I love music so much that was it the Mark Bolan, or was it?
Yeah, and I think also my parents, on the one hand, you know, I have to give them credit because you know, I spoke to my mother this morning, which isn't that often, and she said, "Oh, hang on a second, Johnny," and she had to put the phone down and go and turn the hi-fi right down because she was blasting. That was only today. So hang on a minute. So I said, "Sorry, it's not the first time that's happened." And so as a youngster, I saw this behaviour, particularly my mother playing a record 14, 15 times over and over again, the same 7-inch, which is unusual behaviour, you know. But to her it was normal. And she used to do her own charts, pop charts, where on a Sunday she'd sit by the radio and she'd hear the chart rundown and she'd be like, "No, wait, Roxy Music had gone down 5 places." And she did that till she was about 30.
Wow.
So, you know, I look back on it now and I was in a household of music obsessives. But I was asked about recently about football, and I had this opportunity to.
Yeah, because you were going to potentially, you were trying to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, by any stretch of imagination, I don't think I would have made it as a footballer. But I had an opportunity to go and play for Nottingham Forest in about 1979, and played for City Juniors for a while. And I told them that I'm in a band, and that was in my house, and I'd come in from rehearsal with the guitar, and these guys were sat in the front room, and that kind of, when I look back on it now as an adult, that was kind of a moment where I said, well, being in a band is, I was just in this little band with Andy Rourke on my estate, you know, and but I look back now and I said, well, I must have been pretty hell-bent on making music my life, because I turned down that. Also a little bit, because I knew I wasn't going to make it as a footballer, but it doesn't matter, music was the thing.
And still, at the moment, you know, Cool Comet's got unbelievable reviews. Like, really, like, you know, just all across the board. I couldn't find a single critical thing really said about it.
Yeah.
So how does that feel, like, really good? Like, to still be, you know...
Yeah, I must admit, what you're describing has sort of taken me by surprise somewhat, really, because over the year now, it's just, you know, I've been out not just playing in front of audiences, but meeting, you know, press and meeting, you know, fans, and a whole new level of fans. And the praise for Call the Comet's been around long enough to know that something special's happened, you know. And it was kind of accidental, really. I mean, obviously, if I could design that for every record, I'd do that, you know. I think there's reasons for it. One of the reasons is because there's a lot of my emotions in it. Whereas the first 2 solo records, which I'm very proud of, and they really got me up and running, they were a little bit more conceptual, and I wasn't. And one of the concepts was that I didn't want to put my own emotions in it. But Call the Comet has got a lot of drama and emotional content in it, and I think people relate to that. So that's one of the things that I think has made it successful. But to answer your question,
because you're writing what you feel, as opposed to the sort of thinking like, right, this album, I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
and making a bit
I went in there as an escape from the political scene. I went in there feeling the way I did when I was 15. I used to make tapes. When I was 15, 16, I used to peel off from my mates, get away, and go into my bedroom and make these very intensive little demos because I'm obsessed with music, but also I think as an escape from people. I'm quite a sociable person, and I like interaction with people, but I'm also, there's another side of me as well, which is more private and more introspective, and I think...
And more interested in music.
Yeah.
Than in just like sitting and chatting about nothing. Probably like it's a great way of expressing yourself more than...
Well, the guitar is, well, you see, the guitar does a lot of things, and being a musician does a lot of things, but particularly being a guitarist, when you're younger, it does 2 very interesting opposite things. It gets you friends and gets you in a social situation with a band and your mates, and in my case, girls, and, you know, gets you attention. But the opposite of that, I used to peel off, as I say, and use it almost like the way people use a journal.
Yeah.
When I was done with that, that was my way of shutting the world out from being a teenage boy, really. So on the one hand, being a teenage boy, having all of that about you, the guitar is great for expressing that. But in my case, when I found some of that stuff overwhelming, I use the guitar to be introspective, and I'm still like that, really. When I need to shut up or just shut the world out. And that's what happened with Call the Comet. I wanted to shut out the political scene and my friends' reaction to the political scene. So I went to the studio and just, same as the way someone would write in a journal. I didn't do it because it was time to make a new album.
Yeah, and that's always like the way the best music gets made, really.
Yeah, it was altruistic, yeah.
And so, you know, looking back on everything, all the songs you've written, all the different people you've worked with, and bands you've been in, like what are the tunes that you're most proud of? Would some of them be from Call the Comet?
Oh yeah, I mean, Walking to the Sea from Call the Comet has been the most fun to play of any song. Dashboard by Modest Mouse was a bit of a highlight, partly because it was so successful. That was in 2007, 2008. I mean, obviously, you know, when a song's really successful, you tend to be fond of it. But usually because there's a reason for it, you know, it's infectious. But there's a few I've called the Comet. High Hello seems to have really hit a chord with people, struck a chord. But, you know, I can't ignore like How Soon Is Now by the Smiths, because even I can hear how unique a guitar record that is. You know, my stamp on that record and what I put into it is something I'm very proud of. And then, you know, I mean, I've been around long enough, I've got enough about me to know that This Charming Man and There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, what those songs mean to people is something really, something to be really, really super proud of. So, you know, I'm very, very proud of those. And then I have things like subjective things, like there are certain Smith songs that I like as a musician because it sort of does it for me. Like Last Night I Dreamt Somebody Loved Me, I really like. And The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. And then City of Bugs by the Cribs, I think is a really good moment. I was very inspired, and we share the same skies. And Easy Money from my second solo record, The Message.
Brilliant song.
Yeah, Get the Message by Electronic. Getting Away with It, and then there's, you know, stuff I've done with Pet Shop Boys. I mean,
obviously you've worked with so many people,
yeah,
like everyone from Brian Ferry, Pet Shop Boys, loads of people. I mean, are there, like as a, you know, player working with different acts, like, are there any highlights that you put?
Well, Dashboard by Modest Mouse was a real highlight because in a way that really sort of kicked off, I'd say, the third phase of my career, really. Not just to the outside world, it got me a lot more attention, and it was very successful, but also internally to myself, it sort of sent me down it kind of changed my life a little bit, really, being in that band and making that music.
Great records.
Yeah, nice one.
I really like Modest Mouse.
Yeah. So, you know, so Dashboard was very important. I mean, having seminal kind of successful things happen to you as a teenager, and, you know, is a dream, and it's very unusual. But having those things happen to you 30 years later,
and following it up,
yeah,
you know, following up that initial period with something completely different, and that's being viewed as crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm reeling off a bunch of songs to you now, I mean, I have to say, you know, there's a part of me that seems like it seems somewhat immodest, but I'm just being honest. You know, there's a whole. If I look back and I could talk about the songs forever, because the songs are the thing that I like most.
But that's
all the other stuff is kind of bullshit to me, really.
Yeah.
And showbiz, I have to put up with it, or I have to do it, and there's worse.
To do it to help the music.
Yeah, but it comes part of the job. You know, there's worse things in life, and I went out with my dad, digging holes in the road, in the rain, when I was 15, 14, and I didn't like it. So I know that there are worse things in life than having to talk about your image and media and stories and dramas and blah blah. There's worse things in life than that. I don't want to bleat on about it too much, but I find that side of it is all just kind of showbiz bollocks to me, really.
But it's not actually very interesting, and I do think that if some journalists perhaps they're kind of like rather missing the point as to what because I don't do that much journalism. I just want to hear about the music. We're talking to a musician.
Yeah,
that's what we all want to hear about. So hopefully this interview will change that. And,
well, I have a thing as well. I decided it must have been about 10 years ago. Maybe I've got in my 40s. I looked at this record collection that I'd amassed, and there's all stuff that I've collected over the years where it'll have a different sleeve. It'd be a Rolling Stones German edition of this, and a Ronettes thing, and all these rare records that I sort of cherish. But I've sort of started to look at these things and went, well, it's what's inside them that matters. So I ended up getting rid of a load of records because I thought if I'm not going to listen to it, I don't want to have it. And it was very a constructive move. There's nothing wrong with collecting.
But it is a separate thing to just the songs.
Yeah,
as much as you can knock Spotify for how little they pay artists, I do always sort of say, like, effectively, if you'd said to someone in the 1970s, like, there's going to be something that allows you to have every single record in the world, like, probably a lot of people would have been very, very excited.
I've had this conversation with a couple of musicians who shall remain. I've had this conversation with people who should remain nameless. I met a musician who's in his 60s a few months back, and he was talking about how, vinyl, the trip to the record shop, coming back on the bus, with that anticipation, the whole tactile experience. Man, I'm all over that. I understand it, but essentially today's world is so much more worse off. But I said that very thing that you said. I was like, listen, man, if you were walking down the street, all of these musicians you revere, Roxy Music, Van Morrison, Rolling Stones, whatever. If I'd have been walking down the street as a 15-year-old in 1979, and someone said to me that I would have a device in my pocket that would just be able to zoom in from the atmosphere any song at will that I wanted, that I could listen to on the way to school, I'd have been like, sign me up for the time machine.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it all goes over our heads now. Because now if you've never heard a Van Morrison record, you can just sort of like check out his stuff and like check out his whole discography in like an afternoon.
Yeah.
Whereas before you'd have had to like spend your hard-earned cash on that, and it could have been a gamble. What if you didn't like Van Morrison?
Yeah,
It's just a whole lot of possibilities.
I mean, I had those amazing experiences. I had it with my favourite ever record. It's always remained my favourite, what I think is the greatest record of all time, which is Raw Power by the Stooges. I bought it and I completely was amazed by it before I even heard it, because I had that whole bus journey back. I mean, you look
so
at
excited.
Just the sleeve and the title, Search and Destroy, Penetration, and Shake Appeal, married to that, and I've never heard it. I was already in, right, and it had been recommended to me. So that was a monumental journey, and I've had those journeys, but that shouldn't mean that you write off the way we enjoy music now.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed going down the rabbit hole and finding bands, some weird little band in Texas, or wherever, or Tokyo, or all over the world, New Zealand, from far and wide, by just
related artists and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And so this is the last show for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, for about 4 or 5 months, I think. Yeah.
And so I've read that your first performance was at a Jubilee party in 1977.
Yeah.
Was that did you immediately love gigging?
No, I didn't love gigging until 2002.
You didn't love gigging until 2002?
No, I didn't like it.
Because with the Smiths tours at the end of the 80s, were they a bit hard work and drinking?
They were always, no, it wasn't that. Well, first off, I was completely obsessed with making records. So when the Smiths started out, I had such a great time making the records. It was a mystical process and a mystical experience. And I do mean that. And I kind of think you can hear it if you're a fan. that nothing could compare to it. So touring just took me away from making records. And the lifestyle didn't really suit me at that time. And I was just more into recording and writing than I was touring. So, and then the band was so challenging to run, and I was young and all of that. So, you know, the stories people know.
Yeah.
So I found it quite stressful touring, and that's why I didn't tour with Electronic. And Electronic didn't tour because of me. We didn't play shows because I didn't want to play shows. I was done. I didn't like playing shows. But then when I started out with the Healers, which was a short-lived band, almost as an experiment, I really took to it, and being a frontman gave me more control over the vibe, and what a gig is, I really liked it, and then Modest Mouse played hundreds of gigs, and that was it. I was really in them, and then the Cribs are a great live band. So really, it was down to Modest Mouse and the Cribs really
Got you into it.
got me really alive. And then with the solo stuff, I've never been happier playing live. And now actually, I've done what a lot of musicians do, reverse, where 30 years later you can't get me in the studio, but you can't get me off the road now. I love gigs so much.
So do you prefer that now to the studio?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, which unfortunately means that I've actually completely morphed into a frontman, which you know, I have mixed feelings about.
Do you do anything with vocals?
Pardon?
So, like with your vocals, do you have to do like warm ups and stuff like that?
Yeah, I really I really respect what it is to be a singer and a frontman. The two things about being up front is, one, singing well, and singing the way I want to sing, and improving. And that's something that a value that I've had from being 15, 16, 17. And then the other thing is my responsibility to the other people who are on stage with me, because I've been lucky enough to walk up onto a big stage behind and next to Chrissy Hynde, Morrissey, Matt Johnson, Isaac Brock, Nile Rodgers, Hans Zimmer, all these people who are fronting it. And I know that I'm in safe hands. The front man's going to take care of business. So I know what my band need me to be that guy. So I take that responsibility seriously for my band, whoever the band is at the time, and the audience too. It's like, okay, you paid to see a performer. I have no problem with the word performer. I have no problem with the concept of performance. I think it goes back to the 20s, Dickensian times, you know, the little watering holes in all around the countries, UK and elsewhere, working class people going out, being entertained. I think, you know, I'm part of a lineage. I think it's a fairly noble, and I think it's not only a good thing to be able to do it for your living, but I think there's you've got a duty to try and be good at it.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in going out looking at your shoes. I wear the best shoes in rock and roll, but I don't need to look down.
I do agree.
So
and some excellent rings as well. Where did you get those?
Well, a fan made me this. A Japanese, a girl in Tokyo made me and my wife some jewellery. So I'm very, very pleased with that one. This is a thing that I picked up in Coney Island when I went there. I just got a vibe off it. And this is another thing that I picked up in a thrift store. It's my wedding ring.
Yeah. Need to get some rings like that. Well, thank you very much, Johnny. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, it's been interesting.
And,
thank you.
we're looking forward to the show.